The Sandy Hook jury verdict is in for Alex Jones' InfoWars trial in Connecticut, and it's looking enormous. One plaintiff alone is getting $120 million. $120 million. Okay, pack watch for Alex Jones. We will cover all that in a little bit, though. I just wanted to briefly step in and mention that. But let's continue with this.
We're going to walk away from the Middle East and what was going on. And by the way, today I just got off the telephone with the president I got off the phone with the prime minister of Israel and the president of Lebanon. They've worked out a deal. They've been at war, declared war with one another for a long time. They've worked out a boundary relationship along in the Eastern Mediterranean for oil. And they're going to make an agreement that is historic. We also got overflights for Israeli planes over Saudi Arabia. We got movement in terms of how we would deal in the Middle East with aggression from Iran. But it wasn't, there were eight other parties there. It wasn't about oil.
Okay, but
But we should, and I am in the process when the House and Senate gets back. They're going to have to. There's going to be some consequences for what they've done with Russia.
What kind of consequences? Menendez says suspend all arms sales. Is that something you'd consider?
I'm not going to get into what I'd consider and what I have in mind, but there will be consequences.
The midterm elections are 4 weeks from today. The economy remains top of mind for voters. JP Morgan Chase CEO said the U.S. is likely to enter a recession in the next 9 months. Bank of America says the U.S. could start losing 175,000 jobs a month. Gas prices are on the rise again. Should the American people prepare for a recession?
No. Look, they've been saying this now. Every 6 months they say this. Every 6 months they look down the next 6 months and see what's going to happen. It hadn't happened yet. It hadn't. There's no guarantee that they're going to be. I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. That is, we'll move down slightly. Look, think about what's happened. We have done more. We're in a better position than any other major country in the world, economically and politically. We still have real problems, but look what we got done. We passed so much legislation that significantly makes a point about, for example, the American Rescue Plan, the legislation to deal with inflation, the Inflation Act. We moved along. I mean, there's so much that's been accomplished that the idea that there's an automaticity to recession is just not there. They've been predicting this off and on for the last.
But you just said that a slight recession is possible.
It is possible. Look, it's possible. I don't anticipate it. What I do think, look, we talk about the impact on families. The families they have reason to be concerned about energy prices. They have reason to be concerned about a whole range of issues. But look what we've done. We've been able to, the Inflation Reduction Act. There's more, look, I know I always quoted my dad, but my dad used to say, what is there any breathing room for a middle-class family? And the breathing room is after all the bills are paid at the end of the month, they have anything left. And there's more than one way to bring down the monthly cost for people who in fact are struggling, to make sure they have the ends meet and they have enough money. And that's what we've done with the Inflation Reduction Act. Look, we've reduced drug prices. We've allowed, for the first time, we've been trying for years to get.
I mean, that's wild. Hey man, look, listen, Jack. We like shaved a piece in the next 5 years off of insulin for Medicare recipients. Okay. I mean, that's good, but like, that's crazy to use that as a reason as to why like people are not going to be struggling when at a time when they are. On 10 drugs, yeah. And it's not even happening yet. Like that's crazy. Now, I am of the mindset that I think not everything that's happening currently is directly the responsibility of Joe Biden. Just like I've said in the past that, you know, the good economy or whatever the fuck people thought was directly the responsibility of Donald Trump. Okay. The economy doesn't move as fast as the politicians do or political movements do, obviously. Having said that, however, there are things that you can do to set up for a better future. And even if you are making baby steps towards it, saying that like things will be good in the interim period, well, it's wrong. Did you say politicians move fast? I said political movements happen faster than you can understand its impact on the economy.
Medicare to be able to negotiate drug prices. We pay the highest drug prices of any nation in the world, any major nation. We're going to be in a situation where no senior is going to have to pay more than $2,000 a year for the drugs, no matter how much they cost.
Crazy how you're doing damage control for Joe. Well, I think you're not understanding the words I'm saying. I think in spite of everything, in spite of my opinion on like the current president not being directly responsible for the economy, which is like often a stupid thing that people believe. I think Biden, in the way that he's using this opportunity in the interview, is functionally lying about his involvement in fixing everything. Insanely dangerous rhetoric saying that a recession will not happen when it seems like the global economy is going to tank 8% to 10%, millions are going to die. What he's trying to do here is save his ass, and save his party's ass right before the midterms. That's it. That's all he's doing.
We've reduced the price. They're going to make sure that nobody has to pay more than $35 a month for insulin, et cetera. So there's so much to be done. And the same with on energy. We passed look, what I ran on, I said we're going to deal with energy.
Right.
And the energy problem, we're going to deal with the whole notion of global warming. We passed $368 billion worth of help, which, as the same bankers talk about, is going to bring $1.7 billion off the sidelines in investment. Look what's happened. Look at the investment that's going on in America right now.
Yeah. So you think Democrats have something to run on?
Oh, I think we do. I know we do. And here's the contrast. We know what's the Republican platform to run on? What are they running on? What are they for? They want to put Social Security on the chopping block every 5 years, and the other leader comes along and says, no, every year it should be up for grabs. Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, these aren't negotiable items in terms of whether they're going to continue them or not. The first thing they said they're going to do is get rid of the Inflation Reduction Act. And so what's that do? They're going to raise drug prices, raise medical costs again, be sure that we're going to no longer be able to have the ability to have tax credits for weatherizing your home, saving money. I mean, I don't know what they're for.
Our reporting, CNN's reporting, and the Washington Post reporting suggests that prosecutors think they have enough to charge your son Hunter for tax crimes and a
This part was interesting. Let's see what he has to say.
false statement about a gun purchase. Personally and politically, how do you react to that?
Well, first of all, I'm proud of my son. This is a kid who got, not a kid, he's a grown man. He got hooked on, like many families have had happen, hooked on drugs. He's overcome that. He's established a new life. He is, I'm confident that what he says and does are consistent with what happens. For example, he wrote a book about his problems and was straightforward about it. I'm proud of him. he came along and said, by the way, this thing about a gun, I didn't know anything about it, but turns out that when he made my application to purchase a gun, what happened was I guess you get asked, I don't guess, you get asked the question, are you on drugs, you use drugs? He said no. And he wrote about saying no in his book. So I have great confidence in my son. I love him, and he's on the straight and narrow, and he has been for a couple of years now, and I'm just so proud of him.
You're about to turn 80 next month. Happy birthday ahead of time. Whenever anyone raises concerns about your age, you're the oldest president in the history of the United States, you always say, watch me. Voters have been watching you. Democratic voters approve of the job you're doing. Democratic voters overwhelmingly like you. But one poll shows that almost 2/3 of Democrats.
This dummy literally fucking self-snitched on his book, bro. That's crazy. I mean, that's like fail son to the max. You know what I mean? That's fail son behavior to the absolute maximum at that point. Right-wing Second Amendment defenders for Hunter? No, dude, nobody cares. Nobody cares about any fucking genuine principles. That's not a real thing. Come on. At this point, like, you see a fraction of that whenever, like, some dudes who literally are defending Hitler on the timeline talk about, like, my microaggressions or whatever, okay? At a certain point, you got to realize, like, no one actually maintains a legitimate position. Like, it extends in the exact same way. You see a microcosm of that, and it extends all the way out to fucking politics as well, opposition research. Nobody cares about anything.
Democratic voters want a new nominee in 2024, and the top reason they gave was your age. So what's your message to Democrats who like you, who like what you've done, but are concerned about your age and the demands of the job?
Well, they're concerned about whether or not I can get anything done. Look what I've gotten done. Name me a president in recent history that's gotten as much done as I have in the first 2 years. Not a joke. You may not like what I got done, but the vast majority of the American people do like what I got done. And so it's a matter of, can you do the job? And I believe I can do the job. I've been able to do the job. I've got more done. I got the Inflation Reduction. I got all these pieces of legislation passed. And I ran on that. I said this is what I was going to do. And I'm still getting it done. We've got, dealing with, making sure that veterans get compensated for the
burn pits.
The burn pits, making sure.
Jake Tapper's doing such a good job with this interview that he's literally completing Brandon's sentences, dude. Love that. Yeah, burn pits, right, President? Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act, right, Mr. President? Right? Remember that one? Mr. President, do you remember when you did student loan debt relief, Mr. President? Remember that? That was sick. And the reality is, like, here, I'll put on my fucking, honesty hat. Some will call me a lib for this. But as far as, if you look at it from the point of view of, like, inaction being the permanent status for the Democratic Party, yes, Joe Brandon has done a significant amount, okay, in comparison to in comparison to what the Democratic Party's modus operandi is. If you look at it like that, then yeah, he has done some things. It's always a starting point and never the actual meat, though. A perfect example of this is like unilaterally, declaring possession charges to be null and void and releasing 6,500 or even more, especially when you factor in D.C., people from federal prison for marijuana possession charges. Like, that's impactful, okay? But it's quite literally the starting point, okay? It is the starting point. The conversation, the nobody got released yet. I'm just saying it's the conversation starting point. It is the bare minimum, okay? Because the overwhelming majority of people are still locked in state charges in state prison, okay? None of them were in prison. It's expunging the records. Oh, yeah. I mean, well, that certainly, because it's such a minor charge. Every single thing that Brandon has done so far, from the Inflation Reduction Act to the bipartisan budget reconciliation bill that passed, that was an infrastructure bill, to the student loan debt relief, it is always the entry point. Like, you come in with adequate measures that you want to put forward, and then you end up conceding before you even get to the bargaining table with the Republican Party. You concede, you self-cuck, okay? And then you basically push through like a neutered, way less effective bill. And then you want it then you want to celebrate it as though it's the same dub that you claimed you were going to get. So we'll see.
Sure that we're in a situation where we finally have action on guns. And by the way, I'm going to get an assault weapons ban. Before this is over, I'm going to get that again. Not a joke. And watch. And so I just think there's it's a matter of, has anybody done more in the first 2 years of their administration for a guy they've been saying this about my age since I began to run. Mm-hmm. And so, you can come work out with me in the morning.
Anytime. The big question, of course, is when you're going to make an official announcement about whether or not you're going to run for 2024 for re-election. Do you think you'll make a decision before the end of the year?
Well, look, I'm not going to make this about my decision. I'm going to make this about this off-year election. After that's done in November, then I'm going to be in the process of deciding.
Is one of the calculations that you think you're the only one who can beat Donald Trump?
I believe I can beat Donald.
Oh my God. It's the same. They're gearing up for the same talking points for the 85-year-old man to run again. Is that your calculation, Mr. President? That you are the only man to stop Donald Trump? We already ran this. God damn. I mean, why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? For the media, they literally are looking at this like, hey, listen, he's the only one. Ay, ay, ay. He will be 86 at the end of his term if he wins again. No, he's going to be 80 now. He's got 82, but he will be. God damn, dude. It's just so grim. American politics is so grim. It's so bad. The media is so morally bankrupt. Oh, by the end of his second term. Yeah. I was talking about when he's running. And the unfortunate reality, no matter what we say, the unfortunate reality is, no matter what we fucking say, there is still the truth that at the top of the hour, there's a 6-second ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you could do for $5 or for free. Okay? No matter what Brandon says. That's right. It's true. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Trinrec, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Here's the 1 minute ad break now. So what I was saying, all jokes aside, no matter what he says, no matter what we say, no matter what we get upset at, with respect to the feckless, ineffective attitude of the Democratic Party, the alternative is still the Republican Party, which they know and they're banking on. And the Republican Party, as we know it, already when they do get into a position of power, never hold back and go balls to the fucking wall, do everything they can to undermine legislative power so that they can stack the courts and take everything up to the Supreme Court and basically gut all institutional control and run the country into the fucking ground. And that is precisely what we saw. There's a reason why even under Joe Biden, the liberties, the civil liberties, and the autonomy of women was set back, especially in red states, set back to a point before Roe v. Wade existed. That happened under the Biden administration. Erkin Y, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. How the fuck did that happen? Well, that happened because Donald Trump and the Republican Party, the machine, was able to take away one. They were able to destroy any sort of legislative power, right? With their obstructionist policies, they're able to completely undermine any kind of legislative power the Democratic Party has when they even own both the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House. Two, they were able to set the courts up. They were able to pad the decks with their numbers through by way of the Federalist Society and have a pretty much permanent supermajority in the Supreme Court, barring any sort of like externalities that you can't factor in, like an untimely death or something. You know what I mean? They now have a, in the short term and maybe even in the long term, a permanent supermajority of conservative Supreme Court justices. And there's pretty much nothing you can do in this situation if you're not going to focus on building labor power and creating a mechanism of accountability and a mechanism of pushback that genuinely wants to do what's best for the people. And it doesn't seem like the Democratic Party is actually interested in that. So that is the underlying reality, no matter what happens.
Donald Trump again.
All right, Mr. President, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I know you're rooting for the Phillies.
That's a fact. If I weren't, I'd be sleeping alone. I married a Philly girl.
Yeah.
So we talked about Biden, Brandon, Putin's nuclear stuff, but before we continue with Brandon and the Hunter Biden stuff, which is going to make which is going to make shockwaves, let's get to Pack Watch Alex Jones edition, and let's celebrate for a brief moment in the sea of like awful news. Breaking news: absolutely astronomical figures in this InfoWars lawsuit out of Connecticut. Alex Jones owes $229 million to just the first three plaintiffs, all members of the Sandy Hook victims. Okay. There are 9 more plaintiffs to go.
Fred, that weird YouTube channel with the Kevin, who should be the next.
What the fuck is this? Hold on one second.